Understanding character arcs in your novel. Why are they important? How to put them in? And can it hurt your novel not having them in there? We're going to address those questions and more, and we're starting right now. Before we can decide whether or not to put a character arc in your novel, we have to first understand what is a character arc. A character arc is when there is change, when a character starts off one way and becomes another by the end, but not just by magic, it's by the things that happen throughout the story. The things that they experience will either help them become good or bad. A character does not have to always end up good at the end. They can be good and become evil, like Michael Corleone did in The Godfather, or a character can start off bad and become good at the end. But you don't want your characters changing at the end just for no reason, just for the sake of it. We have to justify. And one of the greatest examples of that is in the novel The Godfather. We see Michael Corleone starting off at the beginning, wearing the American military uniform. He's smiling, he's happy, but by the end, he looks like the devil. He's cold-hearted. He's wearing a suit and tie, and he's in an office, and he just has this dead look in his eye, like he sold his soul out to the devil. He doesn't look like the same person as he did in the beginning. In the beginning, he was happy. By the end, there was no happiness in him. Now, this change did not just happen right at the very last chapter. This affected him, everything. When his father was shot, he went to the hospital to help him, only to then find out that the police chief was corrupted. The very thing that Michael stood for was the establishment. Because we saw Michael wearing the American military uniform in the beginning, because he believed in America. He believed in truth, good guys and bad guys. However, when Michael found out that the police chief was corrupted and he was one of the bad guys, Michael began to turn his back on this idea of good and bad. When he was in Italy, his wife was killed, and now he didn't know who to trust. He had to rely on himself. He couldn't allow himself to feel. Feeling was a weakness. So he began to close himself off. However, there was Kate. In the beginning, she too was with Michael, and they were both at the wedding, smiling and laughing. And at the end, she looks at him and she sees him without a soul anymore. She hasn't changed, but Michael has. And the two of them together really create this powerful arc, because we see her being the same innocent person she was at the end, she was at the beginning. But Michael has gone through this massive transformation, where he went from being happy and smiling to being cold-hearted at the end. It was the events throughout the novel that changed Michael. As a writer, you don't want to change your character just for the sake of it at the very last chapter. You want to have events happening throughout the story that changes a character. If a character is evil and they become good, we have to understand why. A lot of writers will just have their characters change at the end for the sake of it, but this makes for a weak novel. If your character is evil and they become good, we have to understand why. What happened? What happens in each scene? Because that is what you're doing as a writer. You're not just writing a novel, you're writing scenes, one that flows into the next. One scene flows into the next scene, in which events happen to the protagonist. How the protagonist reacts and responds will determine if they change. Are they seeing things differently? Are they experiencing things differently? Feeling different? These events, from scene to scene, building up until the end, is what will create the character arc, like a bridge going from one end to the other. But we can't have a character change for no reason. We have to have them experiencing things, and how they react to those experiences. That is what creates the character arc. You want the reader to be able to read the book twice, knowing how they started off and how they ended, either good to bad or bad to good. And when they read the book for a second time, they're going to see those events that changed them and say, yes, this is why the character ended up changing. Because if you read a 500-page novel in which the character is 100% the same at the end as they were at the beginning, you end up feeling as though that was a wasted novel, a waste of time. But if the character has a massive transformation from good to bad or bad to good, that's going to be compelling. You're going to notice that at the end and say, wow, that was interesting. I want to go back and reread that novel. Because you're looking for those scenes, those moments, and how they responded to those scenes that changed them. Chances are, if you read a book twice, this is what's happening. You're looking to see how the character changed. What happened? How did they think and feel when those events happened that changed them, either from good to bad or bad to good? If a character doesn't change at all, then you don't really have any feeling to reread the novel. This is one of the big reasons why people love reading Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind, we see a massive transformation in Scarlett O'Hara. Who she was when she started, and by the time who she was when it ended. It's over 1,000 pages, but you can't help but keep rereading because you want to see those events that happened to Scarlett that made her change. You may like the character, and that's one of the big things about writing a novel. You don't have to make your protagonist likable. Your protagonist could be bad. Your protagonist could be evil. But people will read on because they want to see those events that changed them. Just like how people will reread Gone with the Wind many times to witness those events that changed Scarlett O'Hara. People read a novel because they want to learn. They want to learn about the meaning of life. They want to learn about themselves. When they witness other people going through changes, in negative or positive, we can't help but learn from it. We want to witness other people experiencing things so we can learn about ourselves. This is the very thing that drives people to want to read novels, because we want to learn about ourselves. When we see someone going from bad to good or good to bad, we want to know why. Because why is the biggest question that drives any novel. We always want to ask why. When you read a newspaper, you're given the information on what happened, but you're not really told why something happened. But when you read a novel, you're given insight into someone's mind and how they think and feel about something that then allows us to understand why they did what they did. Why did they change? Why did good become bad? Why did bad become good? By having insight into someone's mind, we can then understand and answer the question, why? As a writer, you want to have a rough idea on where you want your character to end up. Margaret Mitchell did this with Gone with the Wind. She wrote the ending first, and then she started writing backwards to the beginning, knowing that she wanted to make the beginning opposite to the end. But you can't just have a character switch suddenly. She wanted to add scenes and events that would justify how Scarlett went from being who she was at the beginning, who she was at the end. As a writer, you want to have a rough idea on how the character is going to end up. Is the character good or is the character bad? And then what you want to do is you want to aim for the character being the opposite at the beginning. Now what you want to do is create scenes, events that the character will have to experience. And those events can be funny, bad, good, boring, and it doesn't matter what it is, as long as there are events in which the character experiences, in which they will now either grow for the positive or the negative throughout those events. That will then lead to the justification for the character arc at the end that the reader will sense and enjoy. And this is what will make someone recommend your book, because they felt moved, because the character was moved. They changed. And the reader will want to recommend your book to someone else. So as a writer, have a rough idea of where you want to end. Figure out what the opposite is, and that is your beginning. And now you want to bridge the two of them together. How can you take someone bad and make them good? Or make them good to bad? what events have to happen throughout the story that's going to justify that last final chapter and who the character ends up as. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website, where I have a tremendous amount of information and blogs on my site that can help you become the greatest writer you can be as fast as possible. In fact, I'm going to leave a link in the description below where you can visit my site right now and you can start learning about how to become the greatest writer you can be. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my next video on how to research information for your novel. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, be sure to, you know what? I'm going to leave a link for that video right here, and you can start watching that video right now and learn on how to research information for your novel.